Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. And the time has come. It is Saturday, January 9, which means it's Genesis. Yes, Genesis is going to be taking place tonight on Impact Plus. It's always been taped in Skyway Studios there in Nashville, Tennessee. So it's already been in the can. I would assume it's been taped going as far back as November. That's the assumption that I'm working with. I think it was taped part of those Marathon TV tapings way back when at the end of November, where they taped all of their content, they being Impact Wrestling. They taped all of their content until the weekend of Hard to Kill. Then I believe next Saturday or next weekend they're going to be coming in and then filming most of Hard to Kill, and then the next couple of days is going to be more Impact on Access TV taping. So it's a very busy time for Impact Wrestling, and we have a big show tonight. We have a big 7 days, frankly, when it comes to Impact Wrestling, because there's so much going on right now when it comes to Impact. You've got Genesis tonight. Obviously, you've got Hard to Kill next weekend, which will be doing tons of Hard to Kill coverage over the next 7 days. So be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, so you don't miss a single thing when it comes to all the coverage we're doing of that. We're going to be doing a watch-along next weekend. We've got some really exciting stuff in the mix for Impact Wrestling at the moment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Now, when it comes to Genesis tonight, it's an interesting one because these Impact Plus exclusive events can kind of sometimes go under the radar. Of course, people talk about the pay-per-views, whether it's Hard to Kill, Slammiversary, Bound for Glory, etc. They do take all the headlines, but these Impact Plus special events are very substantial because a lot does happen in this. We've seen last year at Turning Point, we had title changes. Final Resolution, we had more development when it came to Kenny Omega, and we had the next developments when it came to Rich Swann and Moose. So keep an eye out for Genesis tonight, because certainly I think we're going to see some big stuff happen tonight. There is a plethora of surprises and left and right hand turns that we could see here. So be sure to keep an eye out for it. I believe, as with the case of Impact Plus, if you sign up, you can get a free trial as well. So take advantage of the free trial, use it, and watch Genesis tonight. It's going to be a very exciting event. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to do some predictions, we're going to do some previews, I'm going to say what I think may and may not happen at the event, and it's an interesting card because it's not a huge card. Why is it not a big card? Because we've got a tournament going on in the card, which means we get, what, 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6, 7 different matches just as part of that one tournament. So there is a lot going on when it comes to that tournament, which is a good thing when it comes to the Super X Cup, because I've been a little bit critical is fair to say, when it comes to the X Division, how it's been booked with Impact Wrestling over the course of the last 9 months or so. Excuse me, 9 months or so. That's kind of been the case. So I'm excited to see that showcase tonight. So let's get straight into the matches. Let's start off with matches from the Knockouts division, as we have Jazz going up against Jordynne Grace. Now, as you can see there, this was surprising to me, because if you followed any of the videos that I've done here on the channel talking about Impact recently, talking about the Knockouts division, and especially the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament, then you would know that I thought that Jazz and Jordynne Grace were going to be making the finals of that tournament. I thought Jazz and Jordynne Grace would get back into the finals of the tournament. They would lose that final, and then Jordynne Grace would turn heel and beat the hell out of Jazz, and then Jazz would go away into retirement. Because, of course, coming into this, the storyline was that Jordynne Grace was looking for a partner, and then what did she do? She found someone that was about to retire. There was speculation on who that could be. And then the person that she found that was about to retire was Jazz, because, of course, in 2020, Jazz had announced her retirement. She was previously the NWA World Women's Champion. She vacated that championship. She vacated it and actually officially retired on the Chris Van Vliet show on YouTube. Be sure to check that interview out. It was a fantastic interview, and he's a great guy as well. So she did her retirement on there and basically said, I had planned to do this retirement tour in 2020, but I needed to hang up the boots because physically, mentally, I was exhausted. There was some other issues as well. I just didn't feel like I had it in me anymore. And the plan was to do this retirement tour in 2020, where she would be booked on a variety of shows, face some hand-picked opponents, and then eventually she would hang up the books. Now, obviously, pandemic 2020 caused a stop to that and postponed that. And then ultimately she said, well, I'm not going to do the retirement tour. It looks like I'm just retired then. Gets the call from Impact, gets the call from Jordynne Grace. They do the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament. I never thought they would win it. I never thought they would win the tournament. I always felt that it would go to a legitimate tag team. I said Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz are still my predictions to win that one, and I still am going with that. I think they really are one of the best female tag teams going right now in Impact, and I think 2021 is going to be a really big year for them. I think they've got a ton of potential, and knowing how Impact treats women's wrestling, knowing how Impact books their Knockouts division, knowing that it's a cornerstone of the brand. It's filled with main events. It's filled with TV special main events, pay-per-view main events, multiple storylines. It's arguably one of, if not the best women's division in the world right now. Definitely competes with WWE in the sense of maybe WWE has more talent and better talent, but in terms of the booking and booking philosophy of Knockouts and women's wrestling and Impact Wrestling, it's incredibly strong. Their philosophy and their idea and ideology when it comes to women's wrestling is just spot on. It's really fantastic. So I never thought that Jordynne Grace and Jazz were going to win the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Why? Because we know Jazz is retiring. I thought the scenario was Jordynne Grace and Jazz would get to the final, they would lose, Jordynne Grace would snap, beats the hell out of Jazz, cements herself as a big heel, then maybe transitions into the Knockouts Championship scene again, I'm not sure. Maybe goes back into doing intergender stuff when it comes to the X Division. I was a fan of that as well. So I didn't think they were going to win it, but I was surprised this past week when they lost to Havoc and Nevaeh. I guess when the way you have to look at it is Havoc and Nevaeh are a more legitimate tag team, and it would be slightly hypocritical of myself, I must say, if I wanted Jazz and Jordynne Grace to win that one, and I would have been happy with them to win, because I say this all the time when it comes to tag team wrestling in WWE, AEW, Impact, wherever. I'm much more of a fan of legitimate tag teams, people that have teamed together for a long, long time. They have entrance music, matching gear, team name, team moves, all that kind of stuff. Utilize the tag ropes, have tag team wrestling philosophy and psychology sound. I much prefer them to beat two singles people that are put together. Why? Because chemistry is important, tag team philosophy is important, tag team maneuvers are important, use of the referee. The psychology in a tag team match is fundamentally different than the psychology in a singles match. So it always frustrates me when I see two single stars beats an established tag team, because in the grand scheme of things that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. That's like a darts player going into javelin and then winning a gold medal in the javelin. Well, it's similar, right? Well, it's not. They're two different things. That's the thing that frustrates me there. So I suppose it wasn't shocking that Havoc and Nevaeh won. So what was interesting is how they set this up when it comes to Jazz and Jordynne Grace. Essentially, there was no bad blood or anything like that. There was no snapping and Jordynne Grace being angry. What essentially happened is they lost the match. Jordynne Grace stormed off. She left Jazz alone in the ring, and then they shot an angle afterwards backstage. They shot a vignette of Jordynne Grace saying, you know, I'm sorry I just stormed off after the loss because Jazz took the pinfall. She said, I'm sorry that I stormed off. I'm just frustrated. I really wanted to win. And not only did I really want to win, I really wanted you to go out in the best way possible. I wanted you to retire in style. I wanted you to retire as a champion. I called you in here. I was the one that made the phone call. I feel like I've let you down. In reality, I think what we could see tonight, I think we might see a scenario where Jordynne Grace wins. I think Jordynne Grace will win. It's Jazz's possibly her last big match on a televised stage. Yes, she's probably going to have this retirement tour in 2021 now. She's announced that herself, saying, I'm actually, the plan wasn't to do it, but now I am. I'm going to do the retirement tour in 2021. So Jazz is going to be doing her retirement tour, if possible, during this pandemic. Regardless, I think this is going to be Jazz's last big match on a big stage. Therefore, I think we're probably going to see a scenario where Jazz puts over the younger talent on the way out of the company, because that's how pro wrestling works, the time-honored tradition and all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be the case there. And then I think after the match, once again, maybe they do the handshake and maybe they go their separate ways. But there is just something in my mind. There is something in my mind that says, I just think that if Impact wanted to make a statement, if Impact wanted to do something that was like, okay, that feels like it's real, that feels like that's something we can talk about, I would have Jordynne Grace maybe win, and then they shake hands, and after the match, Jordynne Grace beats the hell out of Jazz. Or I could see another scenario, where Jazz actually wins, and Jordynne Grace is not only that frustrated that she lost in the semi-finals of the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament, then she's also frustrated that she lost to this decrepit old wrestler who's trying to come in and take her spot. I brought you in and now you overshadow me. How dare you? I'm a former Knockouts champion. I was competing for the X Division Championship a couple of months ago. Now I'm losing to some over-the-hill wrestler that's about to retire. How dare you? I could see something like that. So this could go either way. If I had to put my neck out, I would say that Jordynne Grace will win. But it's an interesting storyline, and I'm a huge fan of Jazz. I'm a huge fan of Jazz going way back to ECW days. Then I enjoyed her work in WWE, her matches with Trish Stratus and Lita in the early 2000s. I liked her resurgence as well when she was the NWA World Women's Champion too. So I'm glad to see her getting this opportunity to sort of go out on her own terms. Hopefully she will get to do her retirement tour in 2021. But this is going to be an interesting one. And again, given that there aren't a ton of matches on tonight's card, this is going to get time and this is going to get attention, which is exactly what Jazz deserves in her retirement. So I think Jordynne Grace will win, but I'm not massively confident on it. So it's going to be an interesting one, that. Of course, this whole event really is about the Super X Cup, because the Super X Cup is back. The Super X Cup returns at Genesis tonight. The competitors in the tournament are as follows. We've got Ace Austin, Suicide, Davari, Cousin Jake, Crazy Steve, as well as newcomers Trey Lamar, Casey Navarro, and Blake Christian. They're all going to compete for the Super X Cup tournament trophy. So who's going to join the likes of Chris Sabin, Samoa Joe, and Desmond Xavier in the person to hold the Super X Cup? Now, personally, I think this whole tournament is about Ace Austin. I think that's what it's all about. Ace Austin, he got the X Division Star of the Year as part of the End of Year Awards. He wasn't being used prior to this. After Bound for Glory, he did, one episode of Explosion, I think it was. Apart from that, he wasn't being used on TV at all, which is a crime, quite frankly. He really should be used way, way, way more often on Impact Wrestling television. He's just that good. He really is just that good. So I'm glad to see that the X Division is getting a spotlight here, because I've been critical. I've been critical of the X Division. Not so much of the athletes, not so much of the matches. I've been critical of the booking. I think they need more talent. The X Division, in the same way that I praise the Knockouts Division for being a cornerstone of Impact Wrestling, the X Division is absolutely in the same light there. It is something that differentiates Impact Wrestling from everyone else, going way back when to the NWA TNA days back in 2002. It's something that has separated the company from its competitors. It is a cornerstone of the company, as I said. So it needs to be featured more, and it needs to be bolstered up. And over time, through the various regimes of Impact Wrestling, whether it was the Dixie Carter days, Vince Russo, Bruce Pritchard, Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett back again, the early days of Anthem, now the Scott D'Amore, Don Callis days, all that kind of stuff, it has slightly lost its identity over time. It became a cruiserweight division, then it became, you can only have X Division matches that were triple threats or three-ways, then there was a weight limit, then there was no limits again. The X Division beauty was that it was all about great matches, great matches. It was kind of like the Ring of Honor Pure Championship in the sense that it wasn't about weight limits, it was about no limits, and it was about having great matches. And it feels like they've kind of lost that identity over the course of the years, and it feels like every time they get it back by having a great star in there, that star then gets propelled to the main event scene. Now that's not a problem, realistically. That's probably how the division should work. We've seen that over time, going back to AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, stars that started out in the X Division, but then eventually they go into the main event scene. That's not a problem. The issue is, how do you replace the talent in there? And over time they've kind of not done that. So let's go through the brackets. Let's try and see if I can predict this one. So the first match is Ace Austin versus Suicide. So I'm going to say Ace Austin wins that one because he's my prediction to win the whole thing. Then we've got Davari versus Cousin Jake. That's an interesting one. I would probably say Cousin Jake wins that one purely to set up the babyface versus heel dynamic in the semi-final. So I'm going to go Cousin Jake to win that one. He also lost this past week on Impact as part of that Eric Young, Joe Doring tag team match. I know that he has the feud with his cousin at the moment, Cody Deaner. With the Eric Young stable with Joe Doring right now. Love Cody Deaner's new look, by the way. I think he looks fantastic. I'm interested in the Eric Young stable. I know some people aren't so sold on it. I'm interested in it because I think it's a unique concept. Eric Young kind of becoming a cult leader and brainwashing people, I think is very interesting. I think Joe Doring is an impressive stature of a man. He's a big guy. So I like that the muscle's involved there. I kind of like... It's not a straight edge society because it's just not, but it's kind of the similar sort of mold of bringing people into this faction where you've got this cult of personality leader that brainwashes people and improves them for the betterment of their career. I like that. I like that kind of... It's unique. It's unique. Is it similar to sort of Dark Order? Slightly, but not... But no, it's got sort of things that are similar. I will agree with you there, but not exactly the same. So obviously we could see a scenario where... Cody Deaner or Eric Young or Joe Doring gets involved. I think that would probably happen in the Ace Austin versus Cousin Jake match though. So I think Ace Austin will beat Cousin Jake, and that's how Ace Austin will get to the final. I think Ace Austin might beat Cousin Jake though, as I mentioned, with some interference from Eric Young, Joe Doring, or more importantly Cody Deaner. So that's how Ace Austin gets to the final. Crazy Steve versus Trey Lamar. This is interesting because these names here are some of the newer names apart from Crazy Steve. I think Crazy Steve won the match this past week on Impact Impact Wrestling. I believe, was it Ace Austin, Blake Christian, Casey Navarro, and Crazy Steve were involved in that one. I think Crazy Steve won that match purely because they're trying to give off the impression that Crazy Steve's got a chance in this one, which I don't think he does. He was the person I think people didn't think were going to win. He was the one that people doubted would probably win the cup tonight at Genesis. So I think that's the case. I think that's why Crazy Steve won. So I don't think he's going to win tonight. I think Trey Lamar, I'm going to go to beat Crazy Steve, and then I'm going to go with Blake Christian to beat Casey Navarro. I've seen a lot of stuff about Blake Christian on social media. Now, Casey Navarro, I thought was very, very impressive actually in the week on Impact. I thought he was incredibly impressive, but he did take the pinfall. So I'm going to go with Blake Christian to face Trey Lamar, and then in the final, this is a tough one. It's a tough one. This is the thing with brackets. You can be miles out. I'm going to go with Blake Christian to face Ace Austin in the final, and then I'm going to go with Ace Austin to win the whole thing, because I think that's what the tournament's all about. I think this tournament is purely a vehicle for Ace Austin to have a great start to 2021. I think Ace Austin needs to be in main events by the end of the year. I don't know how long they've got left, but they can still do the storyline where Ace Austin becomes the youngest world champion in the company's history. He's under contract until at least 2022, 2023. This is a guy that needs to be in main event soon. This is a guy that is going to be a world champion at some point. It's up to Impact now to capitalize and make the most of his time with Impact Wrestling. And finally, we have the main event, which is an I Quit match, as TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose goes up against Willie Mack. This one's really interesting because I think Moose's status right now when it comes to Impact is just fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating because Moose is in such a unique position, because coming out of Bound for Glory, it was very, very obvious this guy was scheduled, destined for an Impact World Championship match and feud with Rich Swann. How did we know that? Well, he got a big victory at Bound for Glory. He faced EC3 in a match, if you can call it a match. Regardless, he won. He came out on top on that feud. Now, immediately after Bound for Glory, he confronts Rich Swann backstage in a segment with the Rascals. That is called planting seeds to Talus. Eventually, Moose is going to face Rich Swann for the Impact World Championship. And the story always there is you're going to have to unify the TNA World Heavyweight Championship with the Impact World Championship. That makes the most sense there. So it felt like that's the direction that we were going in. So who does Moose feud with next? Willie Mack. Why does that make sense? Willie Mack is Rich Swann's best friend. If you want to get to Rich Swann, you go through Willie Mack. That's the story they did over the summer with the whole Rich Swann and Eric Young storyline. Eric Young faced Willie Mack several times. So again, that totally made sense. The confrontations with Willie Mack, the seeds being planted, feuding with Rich Swann backstage and feuding with Willie Mack. And then at Final Resolution, what happened? Chris Bay faced off against Rich Swann. Rich Swann defeated him. What happened at the end of that show? Moose came out, handed the championship to Rich Swann. That said to everyone, Moose versus Rich Swann for the Impact World Championship is happening, and it's happening very, very soon. But then what happened? Kenny Omega, the AEW World Champion, the AEW and Impact Wrestling crossover, that happens. That's a thing now. So Rich Swann's attention is now on Kenny Omega. It's now on the Good Brothers. It's now on Don Callis. Now possibly on the Young Bucks too, after what happened on Dynamite on Wednesday. And it kind of feels like Moose is still destined for that Impact World Championship match. He's still destined to eventually face Rich Swann, but when? Now, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. So this one kind of takes on a new life now, because I think they've extended it, or certainly got more personal, because they're not sure. They're not sure what Moose is going to do with Willie Mack, or what Moose is going to do coming out of this feud. Now, personally tonight, I think it's an I Quit match. I don't see Moose losing. I think Moose will win. I think it'll be a long match. It'll go 20-30 minutes. It's an I Quit match main event of a big special, essentially a pay-per-view event. I know it's on Impact Plus, but it's a big special event. So I think Moose will win, because he's not been doing many jobs to many people at all. Of course, they had the thing this past week, the 3-minute challenge, which I didn't think was done well. I didn't understand how Moose, being so distracted by Willie Mack, could forget that it was 3 minutes, even though he was looking directly at the screen where it said 3 minutes. That to me made no logical sense at all. But I think Moose will win tonight. But coming out of Genesis, what does he do? I don't know. Does he face Rich Swann for the Impact World Championship? Possibly at some point could he face Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship? I think Moose eventually will become Impact World Champion. I think he will have an Impact World Championship opportunity soon. I just don't know how I see it fitting into all of these various opportunities. That is going to be very complex, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, of course, because if you can't predict what's going on, that again, that's not a bad thing. That isn't a bad thing, to say the least. So certainly I'm interested to see that, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, we'll have to wait and see what happens to that. But I predict that Moose will come out on top on this one. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts and predictions for Genesis tonight? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, WWE, AEW, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.